German Fortress 3D is the worst game ever. In fact, it's so bad it was originally flagged on greenlight, which almost never happens, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, before we start, I just want to touch on main menus a little bit and how they can let you know exactly what a game's gonna be like before you even play it, especially with games that utilize assets from a variety of different sources. So what I've noticed in my time playing oodles of trashy games on Steam is that usually the main menus and UI look really bad. Why is that though? Why does that look so bad in comparison to the rest of the game? Well, 99% of the time, that's usually because that's the one part of the game the developer themselves actually created from scratch, or at least edited in some way, shape, or form. So if you see a game on Steam and you can't really be sure if it's an asset flip or if it's gonna be, you know, pretty bad in general, then all you have to do is find a YouTube video, or maybe they have a screenshot of the main menu so you can see that, because usually that's what the developer is actually capable of making. And it's not like main menus are the most difficult part of making a game either. In fact, in comparison to the game itself, a main menu should be rather simple to make and make look decently good. So what I want you to do right now is take a look at this menu and decide for yourself, is this game likely to be any good? Go on, don't worry, I'll give you a moment. We good? Okay, awesome. So if you haven't figured it out by now, this game is 100% trying to be a Wolfenstein 3D clone, and I do mean clone. This is pretty well the exact same thing, except, you know, not as good. The developer went as far as to utilize sprites from a website called wolfenstein3d.co.uk. This is a very old community modding website for Wolfenstein 3D and other id Software games. And they do have a history of allowing other content creators to utilize many of their assets and source codes in order to make their own projects. However, I find it kind of unlikely that the creators of these sprites intended them to be used in a commercial project on Steam, which is the current case with German Fortress 3D. I have since sent an email out to the owner of this website. I have yet to receive a reply, and it's also worth noting that the developer did give credit to these specific sprites being used in the game. That being said, this is hardly the only source of assets currently being used in German Fortress 3D. The game itself was made using the Raycasting Game Maker. It's an engine that allows you to make some very old school looking games. Now with the screenshot you're seeing on the screen right now, you can very clearly see that they're using the exact same stock UI as well as the exact same gun model. And hey, I didn't notice this until right now, but the ceiling also appears to be the same. You also get a minigun later on in the levels, and here's a screenshot so you can compare those two as well. So with all those assets, it's probably safe to assume that the developer hasn't done a whole lot to differentiate their game aside from porting in different things from different sources. And, you know, editing the font in the UI. So okay, the game's using a bunch of assets, but how does it play? Because after all, assets can be okay if they're got through proper means and the game itself is good. Well, I can tell you right now that German Fortress 3D is a terrible video game to play, and I regret every second I spent on it. There's no options menu in the game, and you can't rebind keys anywhere as far as I can tell. And that's a little bit of a problem, considering the controls in this game are utterly broken. You move around with the WASD keys, and you can look around with either the keyboard arrows, or you can use your mouse. Now, using the mouse doesn't work, because if you move it faster than a snail's pace, then it's not going to register that you're doing anything at all. And that makes it very difficult to utilize it when you're playing the game. Now, okay, so just use the arrow keys, right? Well, wrong, because there is no key on the keyboard to fire your weapon. You can only do so using the left mouse button. And the only basis on this is that I literally stood around and pressed every key on my keyboard to see if something would fire my weapon, but none of them did. So you end up needing to use the mouse controls, which hardly work at all and are nearly impossible to use in order to actually play the game, because you can't fire and use both your hands on the keyboard at the same time. And since using the mouse to aim is nearly impossible, the game is actually kind of broken right now, and it's very difficult to even get past the first level.
And I don't mean difficult in the sense that it's an old school game, I mean difficult in the sense that it doesn't freaking work.
So to add on to that as well, the enemies in the game basically nuke your health down at a consistent and steady rate. Now I understand that games were more difficult back in their heyday, but at the same time, when you're playing a game like Wolfenstein, you didn't have a constant stream of health falling down as soon as you see an enemy. They did have specific attack patterns, which these ones do not. And that causes a lot of problems in the game, things like your health going down when doors are clearly still closed and they shouldn't be able to see you, but they can nonetheless. and various other little gameplay annoyances. Alright, now can we talk about Greenlight? Because I really want to talk about Greenlight again. I'm not sick of hearing about it. So this game, along with every other game submitted by the developer Ghost RUS, was deemed incompatible for Greenlight way back in the day, and yet somehow this has also ended up on Steam regardless. So what does incompatible with Greenlight really mean? Well, it basically means that Valve decided that this game and the other games by the developer were not really suited for Greenlight, and that could be due to a variety of reasons. In the past, there have been reasons such as copyright infringement, as well as apps and stuff that weren't really suited for the platform. Now, considering this is a video game in every sense of the word, I don't really think that they did that for any other reason than the possible copyright infringement based on the used assets and it being, well, once again, a clone of Wolfenstein 3D. But aside from knowing that all the games by the developer were deemed incompatible, I can't really confirm why they were because that's not really public knowledge, but I think it's safe to say they were probably doing something they shouldn't have. So there we go, that's German Fortress 3D, an old school FPS that was made using other people's talent. And if you take nothing else from this video, just always remember, look at the main menu for these games, and you'll see what quality they are. I am PattyJack, I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day.